The cold metal cuffs bit into James Carter's wrists as he was shoved against the squad car. "You're under arrest," the officer barked, his voice sharp, but there was something in his eyes, hesitation, maybe doubt. James's heart pounded, every beat echoing like a drum in the silent parking lot. People had started gathering at the edges of the lot, staring, whispering. None of them could see what had really happened, none of them knew the truth, but that didn't matter now. James's mind raced. "Wait, you've got the wrong guy," he shouted, his voice cracking. His chest tightened as he tried to explain, but the words felt useless, tumbling into the cold night air like stones. One officer shoved him harder. "Keep quiet." Somewhere nearby, a woman screamed. He recognized her voice. He had just spoken to her at the store 10 minutes ago. The officer didn't react, focused solely on him. The streetlights flickered, casting long shadows across his face. Every muscle in his body screamed to run, to escape, but the cuffs held him fast. A colleague, a friend from work, stepped out from behind the cars. "James, what did you do?" Her eyes were wide, panic twisting her features. He opened his mouth to speak, but a siren's wail cut through the night, drowning out any chance to explain. And then came the piece that made his stomach drop, a small package, forgotten on the curb, suddenly pointed at him by another officer. This was found near the robbery. James froze. That package, he'd seen it. He'd walked past it on the way into the parking lot. He'd even kicked it slightly aside, not thinking anything of it. But now it was evidence. And now, he was the suspect. The officer grabbed him roughly, forcing him into the back seat. James's phone slipped from his pocket, skidding across the pavement. Someone, he didn't know who, picked it up. "Call my lawyer," he shouted. The officer's gaze hardened. "You're not going anywhere tonight." James looked down at the package, then back at the officer's face. Panic surged. His mind screamed the same thing over and over. "I didn't do this." And then, almost as if time slowed, a tiny, almost invisible detail caught his eye, a sticker on the package. A sticker that could change everything. But before he could point it out, the officer slammed the door, and the engine roared. The engine's rumble shook James's bones as the squad car pulled away from the parking lot. Outside, the night was quiet, but inside, his mind raced. He couldn't believe how fast it had all escalated. One moment he was leaving the store with a carton of milk, the next, he was a suspect in a robbery he didn't commit. Officer Daniels, sitting across from him, didn't say a word at first. Just watched him, his jaw tight. James tried to swallow, tried to calm the shaking in his hands, but the cuffs cut into his skin, leaving angry red marks. I'm telling you, I didn't touch that package," James said, his voice hoarse. "I walked past it." "That's it." Daniels didn't respond immediately. Then finally he said, "Witnesses say you were seen near the scene, and your description matches." James's stomach twisted. "Matches? I wasn't even there. I was in the parking lot buying groceries." Daniels didn't look convinced. "We have surveillance from the store. People say they saw you leave with something." James's mind flashed back. He remembered the man running out of the corner store, a mask pulled tight, leaving behind the chaos. But he wasn't him. He had been in line behind Mrs. Ellis, chatting about her dog, when suddenly alarms went off. That was all. Nothing more. The squad car stopped. James's heart skipped a beat. They were at the station. He felt a wave of helplessness wash over him. The fluorescent lights of the booking area made everything feel unreal, like a dream he couldn't wake from. A clerk leaned over the counter, glancing at his paperwork. "Name?" "James Carter," he whispered, barely above a breath. They took his fingerprints, mugshot, every step mechanical, impersonal, suffocating. James wanted to scream, to tell them, "Look at my hands. I didn't do this." But the words felt empty in the sterile room. Then, during a pause, James remembered the sticker. The tiny detail on the package that had made him hesitate in the parking lot. "It's important." "I know it is." He leaned toward Daniels, desperation in his eyes. "There's a detail you need to see. That package, it has a label. Someone's going to know it's not mine." Daniels frowned, brushing him off. "Save it for your lawyer." But James couldn't shake the thought. The sticker. That tiny, almost meaningless detail might be the only thing standing between him and being wrongly charged. And just as he was taken to a holding cell, the intercom crackled, sending a cold chill down his spine. All units, possible witness spotted near the scene. Approach carefully. James's heart skipped a beat. Someone else was coming. Someone who might have seen everything. The cell was cold. Concrete walls pressed in from every side, the single fluorescent bulb overhead buzzing like a swarm of angry bees. James sank onto the bench, rubbing at the red marks on his wrists. He could still feel the sting of the cuffs, the hardness of the squad car's seat, the sharp smell of the night air mixed with fear. He tried to think back to the beginning of the day. It had been ordinary, normal even. Coffee at the corner diner, a quick chat with his neighbor, and then the trip to the store. Nothing unusual. Nothing that should have led to this nightmare. But the memory of the package kept gnawing at him. It wasn't just any package. It had a sticker, white with small black print. He remembered reading part of the code, almost absent-mindedly. Something about the store, a return shipment, maybe mislabeled. He wasn't sure exactly, but he knew it mattered. He had kicked it aside without thinking, but now that detail might save him, or at least prove he hadn't touched it in any criminal way. A guard passed by the cell, keys clinking. James tried to catch his attention, but the man walked on, indifferent. He leaned against the wall, closing his eyes. Memories of his family flitted through, his sister, Marcy, calling him for lunch, the dog barking as he left the house. He imagined their faces, trying to keep calm, but the fear and frustration tightened like a vice. Then he heard it, a voice low and hesitant, coming from the corridor. James. He jumped. A woman appeared at the bars, her face partially obscured by shadows. I think I can help. I saw what really happened outside the store. James's chest tightened, hope and fear colliding. Who are you? My name's Kelly. I work nearby. I saw everything and I think the cops got it wrong. James's heart raced. A witness. Real proof. But before he could respond, the guard returned, glaring at Kelly. You shouldn't be here, he said sharply, ushering her away. James banged on the bars. Wait. She saw the truth. Please. But it was too late. She disappeared down the corridor, leaving James alone with his panic. Still, a spark of hope lingered. Somewhere out there was a detail, a witness, a sticker on a package, all of it pointing toward the truth. And then, through the flickering fluorescent light, he noticed movement, another figure entering the booking area, walking toward the desk. Their presence sent a chill through him, because he had no idea if this person would help, or make everything worse. Could this stranger hold the key to proving his innocence? James pressed his back against the cold wall, trying to steady his breathing. The newcomer at the booking desk was tall, moving with purpose. His eyes scanned the room, landing on James. For a brief moment, something flickered, recognition, maybe concern, but it was gone as quickly as it came. The guard unlocked the cell, motioning for James to step forward. You've got a visitor, he said, the words clipped and neutral. James hesitated. He didn't trust anyone in this place, not yet. But the possibility that Kelly, or someone else, might have seen the truth kept him moving. As he stepped out, the fluorescent light caught the small sticker on the package in his mind again. He had to find a way to explain it. The figure waiting was a man, mid-30s, wearing a plain jacket and a worried frown. James Carter? He asked. Yes, James replied, voice tight. Who are you? My name's Detective Allen, the man said, pulling out a notebook. I'm not here to arrest you. I'm reviewing the robbery report. James blinked. Relief and suspicion collided. Why are you reviewing it? Don't you have... isn't the evidence against me? Allen shook his head slowly. Something doesn't add up. Witnesses say the suspect ran past a package, left it behind. But your description, how you were dressed, matches someone who wasn't captured on camera taking the item. James's chest tightened. That was it, the sticker. The tiny detail he'd noticed. He forced himself to speak calmly, even though adrenaline made his hands shake. There's a sticker on the package. It has a code. I saw it when I walked by. I didn't touch it. I think it can prove it's not mine. Alan raised an eyebrow. A sticker? Yes, James said urgently. White, black print, some letters and numbers. If you check, you'll see it's part of a shipment. I wasn't involved. Alan nodded slowly, jotting it down. We'll look into it. In the meantime, you're not exactly cleared, but I'm going to see what we can do. James's heart lifted slightly, but just as relief began to take root, the intercom blared. All units. Possible second suspect sighted in alley behind store. The room froze. James's stomach dropped. Another suspect. Another layer to this nightmare? Alan's expression hardened. Stay here. Don't go anywhere. James's mind raced. Could the sticker really make the difference? Could this new development ruin everything, or finally point the truth in his favor? And as footsteps echoed outside the door, James realized this night wasn't over, and it might get far worse before it got better. James sank back onto the bench, the cold pressing against his spine. Alone again, he tried to make sense of everything. The chaos of the last hour, the officers, the package, the sticker. It all felt surreal, like someone had taken his life and scrambled it. He closed his eyes, letting his mind drift back to the morning. He had woken up to the sound of his alarm at 6:30 a.m., brewed coffee, fed his dog, and jogged around the block. Nothing in that ordinary routine hinted at what was coming. At the corner diner, he had chatted with the waitress, laughing at her story about her niece's lost hamster. Then the trip to the store, a mundane list of milk, bread, and eggs. And yet, somewhere along the way, something had shifted. A package had been misplaced, a robbery had happened, and the world had turned against him in a heartbeat. James tried to grasp it, tried to understand how a single moment could spiral so violently out of control. He thought of his sister, Marcy, who would be wondering why he wasn't answering his phone. The thought of disappointing her, of letting her worry, tightened the knot in his chest. I didn't do this, he whispered, as if speaking aloud could make it true. Suddenly, the door clanged open. A young officer stepped inside, carrying a folder. Detective Allen wants to see you. He's reviewing surveillance footage from the store. James's stomach lurched. Footage. It could prove him innocent, or seal his fate. He followed the officer, his cuffs clinking like a countdown clock. Allen greeted him with a nod. Take a look, he said, pointing to a screen. The footage showed the store, the aisles, the entrance. James saw himself in frame, holding his grocery basket, moving toward the exit. Then, out of the corner of the camera, another figure sprinted past, masked, knocking over the package on the curb. James's heart leapt. He had seen that man in real life, the real thief. But then Allen paused the footage. Notice anything? James leaned in. The sticker. The code. The package, he said. It has a label. Look closely, those letters and numbers. It's part of a shipment. That's why it wasn't stolen. Allen squinted, rewinding and zooming in. You're right. This package wasn't the stolen item. And it looks like you never touched it. A flicker of hope surged through James, but before he could relax, Allen's phone buzzed urgently. He glanced at the screen, his expression darkening. We've got a problem. That second suspect, the one reported armed, is now near the station. James's pulse raced. He had barely begun to feel relief, and now the danger was closing in again. Could this new threat undo the one detail that might finally clear him? The sirens blared again, cutting through the tense quiet of the station. James's stomach sank. He hadn't even had a moment to breathe, and now chaos threatened to swallow him whole. Detective Allen motioned for him to stay close. We need to secure the area, Allen said, his voice steady but urgent. That suspect is reported armed. Could be dangerous. James's mind raced. The sticker, the package, the footage, it was all supposed to prove he was innocent. But now, with this new threat, it felt like everything could be undone in a second. They moved cautiously down the corridor, the echo of their footsteps mixing with the sirens outside. James's heart pounded so loudly he was sure it would give him away. Then Allen paused, raising a hand. There, Allen whispered, pointing toward a side entrance. A figure loomed in the shadows, moving erratically, the glint of something metallic in their hand catching the dim light. James froze. His mind reeled. That wasn't him. That was someone else. Someone dangerous. Suddenly, the figure slipped, crashing to the ground. The weapon skittered across the pavement, and officers rushed in, shouting commands. James felt a mix of relief and fear. The chaos was real, but it wasn't him anymore. Alan turned to him. "Looks like you were right. The real suspect is caught. You had nothing to do with this." James's chest tightened, and he felt a wave of emotion he couldn't contain. Relief, fear, exhaustion, it all collided. But then he remembered the tiny detail, the sticker, the one thing that had made all the difference. Alan noticed him staring at the package in the evidence room. "See that?" he said. "You were observant. That detail saved you. Without it, we might still be questioning you." James nodded, his throat tight. The weight of injustice that had pressed on him all night began to lift, replaced by a fragile hope. But before he could fully exhale, another officer entered the room, holding a small device, a phone. He looked at Alan, then at James. "There's a message from the first witness. She says she has proof, something that confirms the sticker story completely." James's eyes widened. Could it really be true? Could one tiny detail, overlooked by everyone else, finally untangle the nightmare that had swallowed his life? And as Alan read the message aloud, James realized that everything, the detainment, the fear, the chaos, was about to shift in ways he hadn't dared imagine. James felt the blood drain from his face as Detective Alan held up the phone, reading the message aloud. "She sent a photo," Alan said, scrolling. "The sticker code matches a shipment that was logged and never stolen. It proves you never touched the package." James's chest tightened in disbelief and relief. After hours of fear, humiliation, and confusion, the one detail he had noticed, the sticker, was finally doing its work. His hands trembled, but not from panic this time. He could hardly believe it. Alan turned to him, expression serious. This could clear your name entirely. You were right to notice it. Most people would have ignored something so small." James swallowed hard, trying to form words. "So, I'm free." Alan hesitated, then nodded. "Technically, we need to process this fully. But legally, yes. You're not the suspect." The words felt surreal. James sank onto the bench in the evidence room, relief washing over him in waves. After the uncertainty, the detainment, the fear of being labeled a criminal for something he didn't do, it finally seemed like it was ending. He thought of Kelly, the witness who had tried to help him from the start, and the unknown bystander who had picked up his phone in the parking lot. Their actions, combined with that one overlooked sticker, had begun unraveling the nightmare. Before he could fully relax, Alan's phone buzzed again. "We've got statements from other witnesses. They confirm everything. You were not involved in the robbery. That's official." James felt tears prick at the corners of his eyes. Not from joy, though relief was overwhelming, but from the exhaustion of having been treated as guilty when he knew he wasn't. The emotional weight of the injustice pressed on him, even as the truth finally emerged. Alan handed him a folder with all the evidence. "Check it out. This is your proof." James opened it carefully. Every image, every statement, every small detail, like the sticker, formed a mosaic that told the truth he had been trying to shout in vain all night. And then, as he closed the folder, the door opened again. Kelly stepped inside, eyes wide but smiling. "James," she said softly, "I knew that detail would matter. I'm glad it finally did." James nodded, heart still racing. After everything, the nightmare was finally over. And as he walked out of the station, leaving the cuffs, fear, and false accusations behind, he realized just how fragile justice could be, and how a single, overlooked detail could change everything. James stepped out into the crisp morning air, blinking as the sun hid his face. The station's doors closed behind him, but the echo of the night's chaos lingered. He rubbed at the red marks on his wrists, now fading reminders of the ordeal, and let out a breath he didn't realize he'd been holding for hours. Kelly was beside him, offering a quiet, supportive smile. "You okay?" she asked. James nodded, though words felt heavy. I think so. After all that, it's strange to feel normal again." Alan appeared behind them, walking briskly with a folder of evidence in hand. "You've got everything you need now," he said. "Statements, footage, the sticker code, it all clears you. I'd say the system worked. Eventually. James shook his head, a bitter laugh escaping him. Eventually is a long time when you're locked up for something you didn't do. Alan nodded, understanding. True. But at least it worked in the end. That one detail, the sticker, you noticed it. That was the difference. James looked down, thinking about the hours spent in fear, the humiliation of the detainment, the doubts of people who didn't know him. He realized how easily the system could mistake someone, how a small, overlooked fact could mean the difference between freedom and ruin. Kelly placed a hand on his shoulder. You're free now. Don't let it shake you more than it has to. That detail. It changed everything. James felt the weight of that truth sink in. Relief and gratitude mingled with lingering anger, but above all, a quiet understanding. Attention, observation, and courage, even in the smallest moments, could protect you. As he walked away from the station, he thought about telling others, warning them, sharing his story. People needed to know how fragile justice could be, how a single overlooked fact could condemn or save a life. And somewhere deep inside, James felt a sense of calm he hadn't felt since the night began. He had survived. The truth had prevailed. If you followed James's story and felt the tension with him, remember to subscribe and share, because one small detail, noticed at the right time, can change everything.